Thank you all for coming and being here. I just want to start by acknowledging that we are on the lands and waters of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and sovereignty was never ceded, so these will always be, and they always have been, Aboriginal lands and waters, and we're very, very lucky and very, very privileged to be here telling these stories and having these conversations on these lands and waters. And I'm very, very lucky to be sitting down with the wonderful Joanna Erskine for the very first Playwright Crush segment, which I take issue with, but I think they've done that on purpose. So Jo, you are a graduate of the NIDA Playwright Studio. You're a two-time winner of the Silver Gull Writing Award. You're the founder of the Storytellers Festival at KXT. You've written for the wonderful ATYP. You've written for Camp Quality, Poetry in Action, Canberra Youth Theatre, and you're the head of education at Bell Shakespeare. Have I missed anything from that enormous list?
Oh no, there's a few other things, but there's too many hats for sure.
Cliff
going on
notes,
there.
yeah,
Absolutely.
of course. And I mean, you're also a family woman and a wonderful mum, and you coach your daughter's netball team, I believe.
Yes, and I'm a class parent this year. Yeah, I don't know, too many things, and I'm on the board of Canberra Youth Theatre. That's another important
Oh, you do
thing.
too much.
Yes,
You do too much.
absolutely. Which is actually where this comes in.
Oh yes, please. Yeah.
So the universe broke my knee in May. So actually, I had personally come to a point where and the Storytellers Festival is a festival that I founded and I produce, which is a showcase and celebration of unproduced Australian writing, and we've done our 5th festival earlier this year in May.
Congratulations.
And it was we had such a response this year that KXT, usually it's 1 week, they gave us 2 weeks, which ended up kind of blowing up. And at the end of the first week, because I produced the festival myself, and I have some people that help me read plays, but we had over 70 plays submitted this year, and I read them all. And then other people help me read, but it's all the organisation producing, curating. And yeah, so in and around full-time work, my own writing practice, everything else, and all the other things that I've been doing. I definitely, hit burnout has happened many times, as we all do. And I had just in my head, after part 1 of the festival, get to Friday night, finish the festival. I had to go to my daughter's netball game on the Saturday, and all I could think of was finish the festival, do the netball game, go home, have a nap and reevaluate your life. Finish the festival, did the netball game, on the walk back to the car, smashed my knee.
Ooh.
And the part of the recovery process is when you break your kneecap into 7 pieces. So I did a really good job of it. It begins with 6 weeks of immobilisation.
Yes.
6 weeks of literally sitting on the couch with my legs straight. And I lived on the couch for 6 weeks. In the daytime, I sat up with my leg out, and when it became nighttime, I lay down, and that was my bed. In the morning, I sat back up, and that was it for 6 weeks. So really, I feel like I missed a few signs in the lead up to that from the universe. So the universe actually went, you are incapacitated.
Take a breath.
So that's been, yes.
Or
so
did
there's
you
been
use
some
that
learnings.
to write?
No. So everyone
Good.
was like, oh, you must be doing a lot of writing. You must, and people would bring these stacks of amazing books to read. There was not an iota of any creativity because I was in a significant amount of pain.
Yeah.
As anyone knows who has a significant injury, the fatigue, doing nothing for 6 weeks was absolutely exhausting. But I still had, writing deadlines and things like that.
Yes.
So I still did have to work and create. And unfortunately, my day job, I can just kind of sit at a laptop. But certainly I had a big wake-up call this year with maybe don't do all the things.
Well, it's fascinating that you mentioned burnout so early because one of my questions later on is about burnout, so thank you. I mean, it strikes me, I mentioned this to you last night, that this is the Currency Press Playwrights Festival, not the Festival of Playwriting. And so I really wanted to take this opportunity to just sit with you and have a genuine chat as if we're going for coffee and being observed by far too many people. But knowing both of our busy schedules, this is sort of the most effective way for us to sit down and have a conversation.
Absolutely. So thank you, Currency Press, for programming a chat for Ryan and I.
It's incredible.
I absolutely intend to interview Ryan, and I have massive imposter syndrome just being on this stage. After that incredible panel this morning, I don't know how we're going to follow up, but I was quite surprised when I got the email asking me to do the Playwright Crush session, but I was the crush. I thought, what?
Of course.
I very much got a crush on Ryan Enniss, so I'm going to be interviewing you as well.
We'll go back and forth, but I mean, why don't we start with what I've got to kick us off?
Please.
Which is such an easy one. How are you? Other than the knee?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. I'm weekends like this, just being around wonderful people like who is in the audience and listening to these conversations and celebrating and coming together as a community really kind of buoys the soul. I think it's been a rough year, but I'm feeling in a really good place.
Good.
And it does make you reassess what's important. How are you?
Brilliant. I'm well. I mean, as well as I can be. I live with a pretty severe chronic illness, which is playing up at the moment, unfortunately. But I'm 27, turning 28 this year, and that's a big year of life. And I feel like I've really found my confidence lately, which is quite nice. And I'm sort of looking around the room and looking at the big names and being like, wow, these are some of my writing heroes. How lucky and grateful I am to sit in this room with all of you and to listen to you speak and to learn from you. So I'm fantastic, actually. Thank you. Let's actually have a proper question now, shall we? You have such an enormous and storied playwriting and writing career in general. I actually have never asked you in any of our conversations how you got started as a writer. What drew you to it?
Oh, well, it actually, when I was at school, I didn't actually think about it, but I used to write all the time. So when we would have, an assessment task or something where it was like, perform a scene or script or monologue. For some reason, I would always say, can I just write one? And I would always create my own. And I actually, and this is what, education's a huge part of, it's one half of my work. But it's so important because a teacher changed my life in terms of me realising or telling me that I was a writer. So what happened was I wrote this short story, and my English teacher, Mr. Matthews, came up to me and said, this is really good. Can I take it home to show my wife? And I was like, okay. So
sure.
This was maybe in year 9, year 10. And he took it home, brought it back the next day, and then told me that his wife loved it, and he told me that I was a writer. And so I kept on writing, but I really didn't think anything deliberately about what I was doing. And then when I was in year 12, I wrote a play for my 4-unit English major work. And Mr. Matthews, again, said, hey, gave me a flyer and said, there's this competition, you should put this play in it. And it doesn't exist, sadly, anymore, but it was the Sydney Theatre Company's Young Playwrights Award. So, and I've been championing them, they need to bring it back.
Yes.
And I was in year 12, and I submitted it, and by the way, it was called Waiting for the 907. It was, as we do in year 12, it was an existential drama, and it was about a middle-aged businessman called Charlie, who it was set at a train station. Anyway, the whole thing's bizarre because it really 9:07 is too late for a businessman to go on a train. There should have been 7:09, but anyway, I didn't know.
It's not as catchy.
And so, and it was all based on Einstein's theory of why we're here on Earth. It was very, Anyway, so Charlie sits on the train station, and various people come and talk to him, and they influence him anyway. So submitted the play. And then after, during my HSC, I got a call from Sydney Theatre Company saying, you've won the award. And the award was a staged reading of the play at Wharf 2. And and I went along, and I spent a couple of days there. Geordie Brookman directed it. Jeff Morrell starred in it. Had Rebecca Massey. Robin Nevin shook my hand. I was
so
18.
huge.
I had to delay my schoolies trip, so that I could, go and have this experience. So it was transformational in so many ways, but also at the same time, when I was there, I met the people and worked with the people at Sydney Theatre Company, and the person that was kind of looking after me was called the education manager. And I was like, education manager? That sounds like a cool job within a theatre company that I'd never heard of. And so, it gave me an idea for how can I take my kind of interest in education and theatre and make a job out of it. And B, really kind of, it was a shame because I really feel like I peaked too early. I haven't had a play on it at the STC since I was 18. But it was an incredible start. So that, and then after that, went to uni, wrote and directed, and all of my plays went to NIDA, went on from that, and have been working very solidly in independent theatre, and I have my own production company called Little Trojan.
Wow, that's a fantastic sort of example of how important education is to begin someone's career.
Absolutely.
I think it comes back to that first teacher who believed in you.
Absolutely. Teachers are very important people.
They are.
Can you tell me how you got started? And because you're an actor, so did the writing or the acting come first?
The writing came first. I've been scribbling stories since I was old enough to hold a pencil. And funnily enough, my writing career really started when I was in year 10. Sort of with the antithesis of your good teacher who believed in you. Because I'd just written my first novel, actually. And I remember plopping it down on my English teacher's desk, and I was so excited, and his name was Mr. Kent. And he looked at me, and he said, "No one cares if you can write a good story." Oh. And I live on spite. So I then sort of looked at him and went, "All right." And then I just doubled down on the writing, and I wrote several more novels, and I got invested in poetry, and I got invested in film and TV, and slowly kind of looked at acting as a thing. And I said to myself, I could probably do that. And I was in the school play, which was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which is shocking because I was not yet diagnosed as autistic, which is hilarious. We learned. And then so I sort of was like, okay, well, maybe acting is my thing. And I sort of let writing fall away for a moment. And then I was in my second year of the University of Tasmania doing the theatre degree when someone was doing a festival and they said, we don't have any plays. We don't have any money to get rights, and no one here knows how to write, but I know you're a writer. Have you ever written a play? And I said, nah, but I reckon I probably could. And so what I wrote was not really a play. It was a series of interconnected monologues, which is still done for like auditions and stuff.
It lives on.
Hilarious. Yeah, it's got its afterlife.
Yes.
As much as I want to kill it.
Yes.
But then, I started writing actual plays, and I got obsessed with it, and then moved up to Sydney to study acting at NIDA, and lo and behold, we are here. Oh my goodness! So that's that. You finally know where I come from and where my writing is. On the subject of writing, do you have any rituals? What's your process for writing? How do you write a play, Jo?
That is a very interesting question. Practically, my writing has to fit in little scraps of time around all the other things that I do, and especially as a parent as well. And I'm pretty bad at it. I will usually my process was like once the kids are gone to sleep at 9 o'clock at night, no one's writing anything decent at that hour. I'd sit down and I'd just kind of like a zombie, or write on the weekends, or I would take annual leave whenever I did creative developments or rehearsals or things like that. But then last year I decided I wanted to write a novel, and I've never written a novel before. And I don't know if you guys know, but novels are a lot more words than a play.
Just slightly.
So I looked at my schedule, I was like, this is not going to work trying to fit in writing a novel. And I knew that I had to kind of do it incrementally. So I basically just assessed my life and realized that I just get into bed and doom scroll for at least an hour and a half every night because I'm exhausted. And so if I instead didn't doom scroll, I could get up at 5 a.m. and just write. And so I do that now. I get up every morning and I write until one of my children finds me at about 6:30, and then I get on with my day and do my job, which is amazing because the feeling to have started your day writing with it behind you, with your best brain that you've given to that work is extraordinary. And what I found was, because then I found consistency. And for the rest of the day, if I've written in the morning, the rest of the day, my brain is firing, just with, you know, and I love that, you know, the way that Liz Gilbert talks about in Big Magic about the muse and just being open to it. I feel like me doing the work in the morning and then it's all coming to me. So in terms of the way, you know, that's the practical sense. Then in terms of the ideas, I mean, plays... I think the way that things come to me is that I'll have a concept, but then I'm just collecting bits and pieces and stories and I don't know quite where they fit, and then all of a sudden they will just do this and come together. And the way that it was interesting, Tom Wright talking this morning about how we write, that we start writing our own stories and then we go out. I think I started the opposite way around. My first play was about boys at war, and haven't experienced that. And then my second play, well before I became a parent, was about postnatal depression. And then it was, you know, and I was very firmly like, write to understand what you don't know. That's the way that I started out. And then further on, I started writing about my own life experiences in an abstract way. And a lot of what's informed my work is I lost both my parents quite young. I lost my mother when I was 19 after a very long illness all throughout my childhood. And then my dad when I was kind of in my mid-20s. And all of that. So I was kind of writing, I feel like I was writing grief plays before they became popular to write. You know, now I think we see grief narratives everywhere. But at the time, it wasn't really happening. And so I started writing. I wrote a play at university called Leave a Message, and which was kind of not about my story, but it explored my experience. And then you know, down the track, I wrote a play called Air, which again was kind of a magic realism exploration of my grief. And we can talk about it later, but the play that I'm working on right now, which is part of Griffin Studio, I'm one of the Griffin Studio artists this year, is very firmly autobiographical and the hardest play I've ever had to write.
Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, yes, let's talk about that in a moment, because I think we're all rather interested to sticky beak into the Griffin Studio. Do you find that as you're writing your plays, are there ideas or themes or characters that kind of come back to you and keep popping up, or do you do something completely different every time? Because I know there's a lot of for a lot of writers, there's things that they'll get stuck on. Yeah.
I think there are some of my plays that are, well, my most recent play that was produced at the end of last year was called People Will Think You Don't Love Me. It was on at KXT, and it was about cellular memory in a heart transplant recipient. And that is a play that had been with me for a long time. It's a multi-award winning play that had never been produced. I just decided to put it on myself after a few failed kind of main stage programming attempts. And really just so proud of the production, but really that was there were definitely elements of my life and my experience within it, but that was I haven't had a transplant. It was years and years and years of research to write that play, and then but I think a prevailing theme in my work is grief, but also what I'm finding over the years, because I started writing very dark plays, and I think that I still like to explore the darker parts of our human experience, but I've discovered I'm funny.
Yes.
So it's what I've found my strength is over the years, and you see this in Air, is that I like to take an audience on a journey to explore those parts of ourselves that we just don't want to rip the Band-Aids off in a way where we're going to laugh and we're going to cry and we're going to laugh and we're going to cry and we're going to do this all the way through, because I think that that's the only way to do that. And I've seen I know the impact of that on audience members, because a play like Air, and it was a beautiful, synergy where we had like audience acclaim, critical acclaim. We got a lot of press. We got, it went really well. But the human response to that was me getting every single night when people would come and see the show, getting texts saying, "I'm sorry I couldn't hang around after the show. I just walked the streets for 2 hours thinking about my dad."
Yeah.
Or people that literally physically went to the bathroom after the play and couldn't come back out. Or weeks and months down the line, getting people, just that it kind of cracked open something, because we all deal with grief, but we just don't. We just don't talk about it, and I really wanted to open that up for people.
Your plays can provide the sort of scaffolding
Yeah.
for people to have those conversations and share those experiences, which is fascinating. And I think that one of the ways that our writing aligns is that you talked about that they're going to laugh and then they're going to cry. I often speak about my plays as a breathing mechanism. You have the out breath where they're leaning back and they're laughing and they're opening up their rib cage so you can see their heart, and then you poke it, and then they go, "Phoom."
Yeah.
And it's the out breath, and they lean in, and that's when you have the drama and the moment where they cry, and then you bring them back out here, and it's orchestrating the breath.
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating thing that we share,
Absolutely.
and I never realised that. So
And I want to talk about. We need to talk about Drizzle Boy.
yes, I suppose.
And I guess my question for you about it was, did you write that play in deliberately, addressing and writing something that didn't exist, in a narrative that didn't exist, in a form? Because I think you kind of created a form in writing that play that didn't exist. Or was that just Ryan needing to write this story?
I mean, unfortunately, it was a bit of both, to give a bit of a sort of lukewarm answer. I think, for those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed late in life as autistic at the age of 19. And so by the time I wrote Drizzle Boy, I was 24, and I was only just really coming to understand what it meant to be an autistic person living in a neurotypical society. And so I saw this article about parents trying to cure their children of autism by administering bleach as a treatment, which is horrifying. And so I got very upset by that. And I did the only thing that I really know how to do, and that's write a story. But I think the form and the actual message of the show, that was just pure Ryan Enniss madness, I think. It's a very absurd, heightened, magical, realist play. And I think that's sort of just how I experience life and how I like to experience life, in this lightness, in this, you take a dark idea, in the idea that there's all of these preconceived notions of what autism is and what autistic people are. And then you poke fun at it. You poke holes in those theories. You poke fun at yourself for maybe aligning with a couple of them. And like, it was a big, task, but I wasn't really conscious of creating Australia's first main stage autistic show, or creating a new form. I was just trying to tell the story that I think I would have liked to have heard when I was 15 and felt like I didn't belong anywhere.
But also the amazing thing about that is that you built in accessibility within the show itself. So talk to us about the intention to do that, and how you actually crafted that, because accessibility is always something that's huge. Like, we'll make the show and then we'll make sure people with wheelchairs can come in, but actually you're building it in from the ground up.
Well, yeah, I always find that it's an afterthought for a lot of people. It's that we'll build the ramp later, or we'll have the Auslan interpreter for one show, or something like that, which we could do better. But for me, part of the job of Drizzle Boy, part of its job as a play, as its life beyond, as they mentioned in the previous segment, was community. It was building community. And part of building community for neurodivergent and disabled people is embedding access. And so when I talk about embedding access, I mean that within the script, if you pick up a copy, you can buy one from Currency Press outside, you'll see that there is a sort of safety net for neurodivergent people built into the script. If you put on a production of Drizzle Boy, you have to have a sensory safe breakout space where people can watch the show on a screen or take a moment to breathe or to be in dim lighting, soft sound environment so that they can regulate and then access the text and the show in the way that they need. But there's also a sort of tech element that I wanted to play with. I know that whenever I go to the theatre, there'll be a lot of harsh lighting and sound cues that are explosive and fantastic, but sometimes a little bit maybe upsetting or triggering to some people. And so part of the script Drizzle Boy, that you have to have a warning system, a visual and audio cue that lets people know there's going to be a harsh shift, there's going to be a loud sound, and that just lets them put on headphones or plug their ears or like look away for a moment, do whatever they need to do to get through that moment, and then still be in the story. And so yeah, it was a really big thing for me to want as many neurodivergent and disabled people as possible to be engaged with this story. And the way that we do that is by making safe spaces, by making accessible spaces, and by starting with the script, by starting with the playwrights thinking about people. Because I think that's kind of what we do for a living, is we think about people a lot.
Just a bit?
A little, just sometimes.
And what was the neurotypical response? I'm not making a generalisation, but what were some of the responses from the neurotypical community?
Bless you. We had mixed responses. I think the overwhelming majority of people were so supportive. They were so lovely, and they really wanted to champion this story and champion these experiences. And so many people said, "Oh, I never thought theatre could do that. I never thought theatre could be that. I never thought about having a sound audio cue to let people know, or a breakout space." I mean, there were a couple of, questionable people who were like, "Oh, I didn't really get it. It was sort of a, why do you need that crap?" But each to their own, I suppose. But yeah, no, everyone was sort of really lovely. I'm just going to take a glass of water because I need dry mouth cure.
Do. And maybe while you're doing that, because it feels like we should talk about the project on which we both met.
Yes.
Which was Method in Madness.
Yes, Method in Madness.
Should we share a little bit about
Please,
that?
yes.
So part of my job, so I'm the head of education at Bell Shakespeare, but I am in the artistic team as well, and I'm very grateful that I get to work as an artist for the company as well. Do a lot of writing, actually. And one of the projects that came about, it started, we did the first creative development for it, would you believe, in February 2020, just before the world shut down, with Dan Graham, wonderful director. And it is a project that was originally about creating a work that looked into whether any of Shakespeare's characters were or could be neurodivergent. And there was, a lot of incredible content, and we got a group of neurodivergent artists. Ryan wasn't in that initial creative development. But we got in a room, and part of the process was national survey. So we surveyed and heard stories from neurodivergent artists in the Australian performing arts industry. And as we went on with the project, we realised that the story actually wasn't about Shakespeare's characters. It was about the experiences of these artists, and what it is to be neurodivergent in the Australian arts industry, and all of the benefits of being a neurodivergent artist, but also the many ways that the industry challenges those artists. And then the project developed, and basically my role on it was writer but dramaturg, and taking and I'm outing myself as I was basically the neurotypical in the room.
Debatable.
A lot of people, including Ryan, in the last creative development on a few occasions tried to diagnose me. There's a few things going on.
I know my people when I see them,
Yeah,
Joe.
yeah. You've said a few things, Joe, that... So then the project developed, and we did even more extensive national surveys, and from those we interviewed artists, and then I started writing a script that was basically pulling together and fictionalising these stories, because we were very clear to say, I'm not going to take someone's very intimate, raw story that they tell me, terrible things that you're being told that happen in this industry, and just put that on a stage. So it was all these stories in the plays all based in true experiences, but they're fictionalised. And so we broke it down into, auditions, rehearsals, de-rolling, masking, all these networking, all these things, and then created a work about it. And when was it? A couple of years ago. I can't even remember now. 23. We spent a week in the room next door over at Bell Shakespeare in the Seed, with a cast of incredible neurodivergent artists, with Dan, with Dylan Crawford, an access consultant who is autistic himself, who was just incredible. And we built in all of those things, and so much was learning from you and everyone else about what to have in place in this room, so that everyone could, because we were asking everyone to be very vulnerable, and just show up as yourself. And I'll never forget that, and we can kind of talk about all the mechanisms that we had in place. Maybe you can share about that. But I was really proud. I remember there was one artist one day who was running late for various reasons, and she texted me to let me know that she was going to be late. And when she eventually turned up, she said, that was the first time I've ever texted someone to say I was going to be late, and I felt no shame, and I knew I wasn't going to be judged and everything, and it was going to be okay. So yeah, maybe you could talk a little bit about the experience of being an artist in that room, in that creative development.
Yeah, of course. Well, I think first off, I need to say that you had such an incredibly difficult job there, and that was actually the moment where because I'd come across your plays before, but that was the moment where I was like, Joanna Erskine is phenomenal, and I want to engage with everything she makes. Because you had to take all of these experiences and then add your own fictionalization, and then you also had to stitch that together with Shakespeare.
Yeah, which we did pretty well.
Which you did phenomenally, but that is such a big task, and I just wanted to flag that because that is incredible. But the room itself was, it was lovely. It was the first time in my life I'd been in a neurodivergent-led room that I wasn't leading, which was incredible. But every morning, Dylan Crawford, our wonderful access coordinator, sort of set the intention for the room, and came in with these sort of rules of engagement. And it was sort of things like try not to talk over each other, and try to assume good intentions from people, which I think is a really valuable one that everyone could learn from. But that really set the tone and the mood. And yeah, we really embedded those accessibility requirements from day dot, from the first moment. We did a table read quite early on, and we had people, getting up and stretching because they had, physical limitations. We had people reading off coloured paper because they were dyslexic. We had all of these little tiny, seemingly insignificant things that all added to make that room really viable and vibrant and wonderful. Yeah. And I think it was a testament to Bell Shakespeare that they, as a company, really championed that story and those experiences. And I was very grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, and then also I think the audience experience was considered as well.
Of course, yes.
So one of the things in one of the initial creative developments, our first access consultant that we worked in came in with pipe cleaners, just coloured fuzzy pipe cleaners, and put them on the table. And I was like, what's that for? And then she just said, they're basically like fidget toys. So she's like, if at any point you just pick up a pipe cleaner and do whatever you want with it. And I was like, let's put that into the show. And so what we did, and there were many things that we built into the audience experience, because we deliberately are making a work for neurotypical and neurodivergent audiences for various reasons. But as people came in, and we did a reading at the end of the creative development, but as people came in, the ushers just gave each person a pipe cleaner. didn't explain what it was for, just gave them one, and actually they were told, don't, if someone says what's it for, don't explain. And they sat down, and then I'd written into the script that halfway through the show, the actors said, hands up if you, like, show me your pipe cleaners. And that was the first time that, like, hold them up, and people held them up. And then we scripted it, so we talked about what people had done with them, because some of them were completely untouched and straight because people had like textual issues with them. Some of them were like crafted into amazing little things. There was this, and everything in between. And everyone was just like, oh yeah, here's my brain on display. Yeah. And you didn't even tell me what to do about it. And then we fed it into it was part of a vignette about hidden disabilities and the invisible rules that are existing in the world that are really challenging for neurodivergent
Some very
people.
clever writing and scaffolding from you, which I do want to keep my interviewing of you going.
Let's
because
go.
I
Let's
mean,
jump off.
this is the Playwrights Crush segment, and I did ask to interview you. So you have had such a successful career, and you've done so many different forms and structures with your plays and types of content. This is such a broad question, so feel free to tell me to get stuffed, but do you have any advice for any potential emerging writers who are still working out their form or their structure or their writing practice maybe? Have you learnt any hard lessons that you might like to impart? Or
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that, Ryan, because I still feel like this industry actually classes me as an emerging writer.
Really?
And this is why I think this is interesting, because this segment is about an emerging writer interviewing a established artist. You've actually had main stage success, and I haven't. So typically, I'm actually sitting in an emerging category, which is I'm like, when am I coming out of this cocoon? But I think that's interesting to look at, because there's a lot of us. I know there's a lot of people like me out there who've been working in this industry for a very long time, who've had success, who've had awards, but haven't cracked through to that level. My advice, I think, that I would always give is I've learnt to write the play that you want to write.
Yeah.
Whenever I've written a play that I think the industry wants, it's never as good as a play that I am lit up by and I want. And often I think, gosh, no one will really care about this, but I really want to write it. And actually, Air is a good example of that, because Air is a play that I wrote down at Bundanon. I was down there with a group of, I was in a playwrights collective with an amazing group of friends. It was called ISM. We did a lot of playwrights activism back in the day. And we were down there and then working on something, and then everyone else except me left, but we had this kind of residency for another couple of days. So I thought, I'll just stay down here and write. And I just wrote Air in a couple of days. And it was just a cathartic play, just working through my experiences with the loss of my mother. But it was set in a community radio station, and it's a real out and out comedy. And about death and grief. But I just thought, gosh, no one's going to want to know about this play. Like, I'm glad that I've written it, and I'm going to put that in a drawer. And then a couple of years later, one of my very good friends, who I met via university plays, Eloise Snape, who's an amazing writer and now actor and now writer herself, we wanted to do an indie show together, and she said, what have you got? And I'm like, well, I've got this thing, but I don't, and so we read it, and she was like, yeah, let's do it. And we pitched it, and the old 505 programmed it, and it ended up being just an extraordinary experience. And I think that, and was so well received, and I really still hope that play can do a regional tour. It was really based on, has everyone heard of the wind telephone? In Japan, after the tsunamis, there was a man who put an old telephone box in his backyard, and there was such a loss. And this is pre-COVID. It's actually like the perfect post-COVID play, because it's about connection and grief and loss. But there was a man in Japan who put an old telephone box in his backyard, and it didn't work or go anywhere. But people would go pick up the phone and talk to their loved ones that they had lost. and it was recorded, and so people could hear what these people were talking about. And what was fascinating about it is that they were talking to husbands and children and grandparents and all these people that they had, lost in this devastating event. But the things that they were talking about were so banal. They were not life-shifting things. They were just talking about the kids' sport and what they had for dinner, all this kind of stuff, just really, really basic things. And I just thought that was incredible. And the other thing where that play came from was it was one of the original idea came from one of these 24-hour playwriting experiences, of which I've done quite a few. We did it down at ATYP, and we were all given a newspaper, and the same newspaper, and it was like, write a play using this. And it was a slow news day. There was like nothing in that paper. I was like, God. And so I got stuck in the obituaries. And what I just honed in on was there was a little notice in the obituaries that said, if you are print handicapped, the obituaries are read daily on a radio station. I was like, wow.
Fascinating.
Who is tuning into that? Like that's a really specific thing to be like, let's turn on the radio and listen to the day who's died today.
Goth, very heavy metal.
Yeah, but I just thought that was absolutely incredible. And so all these kind of things came together, and it became this play about this character who works at a radio station, and the world cracks open as she talks to the dead, but it was very funny as well.
Find that idea and then keep pushing with it. That's great advice.
I think so, because I think we waste a lot of time telling stories that we think other people want to hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a brief moment in the previous panel section where they were talking about writing to get programmed and the commodification of your script. But yeah, I think maybe it is more important to just write the story that you want to hear or that you want to say, that you feel is important, and then someone out there is hopefully going to pick it up and go, yeah, that's the one.
That it connects.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, that's really solid advice for everyone, I think. I would be remiss if we didn't ask you about the Griffin Studio, because you're one of this year's members of the Griffin Studio, and you're writing a new play as part of that. Tell us a little bit about that process and that experience and the play, if you're able to share.
Sure. And I think this is another thing that I'd say if there are, emerging early career writers in the room, is that to say that I remember, I've applied so many times for Griffin Studio. I remember doing an interview for it with Sam Strong, artistic director from a couple of, that's how long ago it was. I had a full-blown panic attack in the interview. I couldn't breathe, and it was because I was in rehearsal for a play and things were going pretty south. I sat down for this interview and Sam said, how are rehearsals going? And I had an absolute panic attack.
Oh no.
Yeah. So anyway, it is incredible to me that things have kind of come full circle, and that I find myself in Griffin Studio all these years later. So keep going for it.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about Griffin Studio is you are not there to learn how to be a writer. Yeah. You are told that you're there because you can write. And that's a really lovely thing from an incredible company like Griffin to be like, you're a good writer, the craft is there, we want you to develop a work for the company. Yeah. So actually what you go into is you pitch a play to them. And the year itself, there's a couple of us doing it together, Christopher Bryant and Hannah Belansky are my fellow artists, incredible
Wonderful
year.
artists.
And so we learn so much from each other. But, every couple of weeks we have workshops where an artist will, incredible people from the industry will come in and talk to us. But each session is, we had a session on premise, a session on structure, world building. The first session on world building was with Sue Smith, came in and then Sue just talks to us and answers our question. I'm like, this is incredible. What a rock star. But the play that I pitched, and of course I have a stack of play ideas fully formed that I can write, but I decided to pitch the play that I was scared of and that I was scared to write. And that play is called Illumination. And again, this is a play that I've been trying to write this play. It's about my dad, and my dad died in 2011. And I pitched it I was up for the Philip Parsons Award. I was a finalist for the Lysicrides Prize 2 years ago, where I also pitched that play. And so I've been trying to, it's the reason why I pitched it to Griffin is because I thought it's so personal. I am just never going to write this play myself without accountability, without support, without someone holding me to a deadline. And so I pitched this. So basically, Illumination is about my experiences with my father, who was a scientist in multiple fields, like just the most incredible, brilliant man who had brain cancer, and from diagnosis to death, it was 3 months. So it was very quick. And it was an extraordinary story that we lived. And as it was playing out, I could abstract myself from this situation, being like, wow, this is really, I should tell this story one day. And the reason why it's called Illumination, and this is why I think it's so, it's a very ironic situation that we have, where the smartest person I ever knew, system kind of just progressively lost each faculty of, losing memory, losing language, forgetting how to walk, sight. It was like literally it just kind of breaks down. And the amazing experiences which I knew I could open up on a stage. It's called Illumination because we had this incredible thing happen where he couldn't communicate with us anymore, and he was obviously trying to communicate with us. And there was this one night in the hospital where he was trying to tell us something, and it was heartbreaking. We just couldn't understand what he was wanting. And then eventually he got one word out, and the word was illumination. And he just kept saying illumination, illumination. And we're like, okay, and we're picking up like New Scientist magazines. We're like, illumination, like what? And we're going, and eventually we worked out what he wanted, and it was the light to be turned on. And it was just an extraordinary moment where a part of me could sit outside of that and go, that's a scene.
Yeah.
and this is a story that should be told. But the really challenging thing about it for me is that I am in the play.
Oh.
And I've never done that before.
Okay, yeah.
So I've learnt that, they don't have our real names, and I'm learning to, it's difficult because I'm trying to tell a true story, but also I realise that I do have to abstract myself, fictionalise it a little bit. I'm telling, a lot of it is really, really rooted in truth, but I'm really struggling, and part of it I've gone through this year. I'm tying myself in knots thinking, no one wants to hear this. This is because it's so specific.
It sounds incredible. What are you talking about?
Yes, but I'm my own worst enemy going, no one wants your grief, your personal grief story. And then I was ready to throw it out and do something completely new. And then as I went through, I realised, my struggle in telling this story is the story.
Yes.
So now it's become this thing which I'm really excited about, where the first act is a really traditional retelling of what happened. And then the second and third act starts to, break apart, because the fascinating thing that I think is that I only know what I know from those experiences. And so at a certain point, my imagination needs to take over. Most of the people I'm talking about in this story are dead. I can't interview them, and so rather than getting dismayed by that, I'm like, well, this is quite cool actually, because this inability to communicate with my father, I can create. And so now I've got like my grandmother who died before I was born talking to me on stage, and all these
so
things where I'm like, well,
fun.
let's just go there and let her lose control of the narrative.
Yeah,
So that's where I'm in.
Release into abandonment.
Yeah.
And letting the story kind of take you where it needs to go. That's fascinating.
Because another part of my father's story is that he worked for James Hardie. And so we spent most of his life thinking he was going to die of mesothelioma, because everyone else that he worked with did. We saw them on the nightly news. And so that is also a big part it's been done on film, but I don't think that story's been told in Australian theatre. So that's also being built into it.
So exciting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of research. It's an epic thing I'm trying to achieve. And the other thing that I decided was it's just 2 actors.
Oh, good.
It's just the father and the daughter, and then they play everyone.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very epic undertaking for whoever has to do this play.
A real challenge.
Absolutely.
Don't like a lazy actor.
But I thought, you know what? This would be so cool if this epic thing is just 2 people doing it all.
I mean, I love a small cast. It
Yeah.
the producers love it, and it opens up your imagination, because then you have to really think about, okay, so if this actor is playing this character at this time, how much time do they need to then go and like change, and you've got to really play 5-dimensional chess against yourself as you're writing, which is such a lovely challenge. Well, that sounds like a fantastic play. And I actually genuinely can't wait to see it or read it or hear it.
Great. I'll keep going with it then.
Yeah, you should. Absolutely keep going with it. That's phenomenal.
What are you writing at the moment?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Funny that you mentioned that you've sort of put this play down and picked it back up and put it back down. Because I'm sort of doing the same thing. I am writing a play at the moment that is very autofiction. It's about my journey with chronic illness and with cancer. And I really desperately wanted to tell this story, I think 2-3 years ago. And I originally called it Making It to 30. And that was the goal. It was this sort of absurdist kind of like Drizzle Boy Part 2 type thing. And then I went, no, that's not it. And no one wants to hear that, so I put it down. And then I got possessed by it again, and I picked it back up, and I said it was going to be called Clinical Carnage, and I was going to do a takedown of the medico-industrial complex, and I had very grand ideas, and it became this epic thing, and then, needless to say, that shriveled up and died, and so I put it down again, and then I fell out of love with writing for a little bit. I got very, very sick. And I was spending a lot of time in hospital and a lot of energy on managing symptoms and just trying to survive. And then very recently, in the past couple of months, I suddenly had this spark, this love, this fire that came back. And I picked up Clinical Carnage and I said, that's fucking stupid. And so I've changed it into a new play called Snakeskin. And the sort of illusion there that we're working with is that it's a one-person show, and there's 15 characters, and it's the story of sort of a chronic illness, cancer diagnosis, but we're adding in this sort of biblical element where Satan appears as a character called Snakeskin, and we marry the shedding of a snake to the sort of internal shedding that happens with my chronic illness, and we kind of do that, and it's this journey of this character through diagnosis into the rage and the grief and the sort of ego shattering personality change that happens when you become sick forever, and it's this examination of Satan trying to tempt this character into giving into that rage and giving into that grief and despair. And along the way, it's another story of family. We have my father makes a stunning appearance because he's the funniest character that I've ever come across. An undiagnosed genius, and he has no social skills. And then my nan pops up as this grumpy Irish woman, and it's this sort of madcap, absurdist, slightly camp and queer and fun exploration of what it's like to be a young person with chronic illness. And I'm writing that because I've never seen that story on stage. I can think of 2 plays where there's a chronically ill character, and they're phenomenal plays, but they were far from main stage common knowledge. And so that's the play that I'm really fired up about at the moment, and I'll no doubt send it to you and be like, Joe, read this. Joe, read this, please. But that's sort of what I'm working on. It's exciting to be writing something so vulnerable. I think that we can both agree that there is that fear there.
But it sounds again you're being very playful with form.
I
for something that's so debilitating and
Yeah, wow.
dark, to explore it in such a playful way.
Yeah. I think I take issue when I go to the theatre, and it's just a boring naturalist thing where we are in a living room speaking in living room conversations. Because I don't go to the theatre to see normal. I go to the theatre to see magical, to see extraordinary, to see things that can't happen in real life. And that's what really excites me. And I think that especially when you're talking about maybe some of these darker themes, this grief, this rage, this despair, I think it's far more interesting to say, well, where's the fun?
Yeah.
Where's the love? Where's the care?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that I'm really relishing at the moment.
And it's so it's so important, I think, because and that you're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do whatever. And because I had a play earlier this year, a play I've been working on called The Muse.
The Muse,
and
yes.
it was I programmed it in Storytellers Festival. It was the first time in 5 festivals that I put my own work in there, which took a lot. I didn't really want to do that, but I decided to. And I was very blessed that I had the extraordinary John Bell in that reading. Because we all, I think, well, certainly I write with actors' voices in mind. And I always, these 2 central characters, I always wrote with John Bell and Anna Volska's voice. And so when it came to it, I'm very fortunate through my work at Bell Shakespeare, I've had a long relationship with John, that when I asked him to do it, he said absolutely. But it's a play about it's set in an aged care home, and I spent many years in aged care homes with relatives, including my father, who ended up in one for palliative care. And so I wanted to tell stories from within the aged care home, but I was like, I don't know what the vehicle is for this story. And then many years ago, I found out about the sheer number of young people in aged care homes with acquired disabilities. And that suddenly became the engine for the story, is about a multi-generational play where we can put, these 2 characters, one's aged 27 and one's aged 80. They're both in wheelchairs. And what happens in that situation. And the play is very, I didn't want to shy away from the darkness, of it. But again, it was funny from the get-go, again, we had an audience experience where we were just going like this all night, which was, really special, and I'm really excited to see where that one heads.
I mean, I think that there is something in that, people who are in darker, heavier spaces in their life or moments in their life, they really seek that light. They really seek the levity and the resistance. They want to have their moments of raging against the dying of the light, but they also want to sort of flip the bird to it and have a bit of a cheeky play with it. I think sick and disabled people are some of the funniest people you will ever meet.
Absolutely. And
I became so much funnier when I got sick. Oh my God. You have to. You have to. I mean, it's that old thing of you will cry, otherwise,
there's no other option.
There's no other option but to laugh. So we have 2 whole minutes. Okay, this will be a very quick question. If you had to take a guess at where you want your writing and your career to go next, do you have any big dreams or ambitions, or are you thinking of a play that maybe comes after what you're currently working on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I hope all of my plays have a long life, and there's a number of my plays which are still unproduced, which I would really love to have a life.
Yeah.
The next play that is in store for me is actually, and it's funny that we're talking about reduced cast, is actually big cast, commercial comedy, female comedy, ode to millennials,
Cool.
that I've got in store. And once I've written, Illumination, I am going to jump into that. I think for me, I've spent so many years producing my own work, being my own champion, literally funding my own work. That's the only way I've been getting it on. I'd really love for someone to pick it up and do these things. And some of my indie shows, I really hope that, because I've done all the development, there's a beautiful play there that's had all the work and is ready for someone to pick it up. I hope that will happen. Yeah, but I'm just really loving being an artist
Good.
and telling the stories and being surrounded by such amazing people. So, yes, more of it.
Well, more of it is great because, I mean, with our last 30 seconds, I really want to thank you for sitting down and having this chat with me because I think you're a fabulous artist and I love your writing and I love your presence within the industry, and I think we need more people like you. And thanks to everyone for listening to our little chat.
Thank you, Ryan.
No,
This has
it's
been
great.
so lovely. Well done to you. Thank you. All right.